If someone asks me about my top 5 favorite game series, I would definitely include Mafia in that list. My very first game was Mafia 2, and I absolutely loved it. After that, I went on to play every single Mafia game. Recently, I really enjoyed the release of Mafia The Old Country as well. But the internet is a brutal place where everyone has their own wild opinions. Sadly, toxicity in gaming has spread so much that we've forgotten how to appreciate good games, especially the smaller ones. That's exactly why I felt it was important to address this issue. I'm not saying I'm 100% right, but at least I can share my perspective on why we need more games like Mafia The Old Country. And yes, I'll also be discussing its ending later in the video. Don't worry, I'll give a proper spoiler warning before that part. First of all, not every game needs to be open world. The truth is, making an open world game has become extremely difficult. To fill that massive space, developers often end up adding repetitive tasks. Just look at Assassin's Creed Shadows, where it was overloaded with do this, do that, repeat the same thing. Creating an open world is challenging because it's not just about figuring out the gameplay and story. Developers also have to focus on NPC behavior, world events, and making sure the world feels alive. Otherwise, people complain that the open world feels dead and empty with nothing to do. That's why the length of open world games sometimes gets unnecessarily stretched. A game that could easily finish in 15 to 20 hours ends up being dragged to 40 or 45 hours. Now, I'm not saying I don't like open world games. I really enjoy them. The freedom they bring, the sense of belonging, and the emotional connection can be incredible. But pulling it off properly is very difficult. And that's exactly why we shouldn't expect every single game to be open world. Linear story-driven games without side missions, bloat, or unnecessary travel also deserve a chance. To be honest, if developers can't execute something well, it's better not to do it at all. Hangar 13 tried an open world with Mafia 3, and many players agree that it wasn't a great one. So instead of doing something poorly, it's always better to stick to what you can do well. That's why I think it's actually a good thing that Mafia The Old Country isn't an open world game. And this brings me to another important point. A linear game doesn't need to have everything in it. For example, people are making fun of the fact that in a 2025 game, the character can't swim. But think about it. If the game isn't even open world and doesn't have any missions involving swimming, then what's the point of adding it? Why should developers waste time on a feature that maybe 90% of players won't even try? Most people will just play through the story and then move on. Besides, swimming doesn't even fit naturally in a Mafia game. First of all, a Don never goes swimming. And second, the Mafia world already has that famous saying, sleeping with the fishes, which means being killed and thrown into the water. So adding swimming into a Mafia game just wouldn't make sense. Now, of course, there are games where developers put a lot of effort into extra side activities, and I agree that it's a great thing. We all clap for them and appreciate their work. But let's not forget, those games are made by thousands of developers. They take 5 to 6 years to build, and their budgets are 5 to 10 times bigger. So comparing them with a linear Mafia game just doesn't work. It's like comparing apples to oranges. To be honest, social media has become a brutal space. I've mentioned this before, people create rage bait content just for likes and views, whether it's on Twitter, YouTube, or Reddit. That's why whenever you search for something, you'll mostly find one-sided opinions. Creators cherry-pick moments just to say, look, this is a 2025 game and you can't even swim in it. But the reality is, neither that creator nor their audience is ever going to play the game. They just found a topic they could make a video or tweet about to farm engagement. And the way social media works, both types of people will click on it. First, those who agree, because it reinforces their own beliefs, and they'll share it further. Second, those who disagree, who'll jump into the comments to argue. In the end, who really benefits? The creator. Even in the swimming controversy, people deliberately showed clips of invisible wall locations where the character gets stuck. But if you actually look closely, developers did think about swimming. The character does a short swim animation before instantly teleporting back to the shore. Still, most people ignore that because fake one-sided stories get more clicks and engagement. This is why social media has played a big role in making gaming culture more toxic. And honestly, most people who spend their entire day on Reddit or Twitter aren't even playing games to enjoy them. They've just gotten used to being keyboard warriors. These aren't the people you should look at to judge the industry. Real gamers play, enjoy their experience, and then move on with their lives. The problem is, this kind of toxicity can have a negative impact. Sometimes a game gets so much unnecessary hate that even if it's genuinely good, it ends up flopping. I still remember how this happened with Guardians of the Galaxy, and then the same people who were rage baiting back then started calling it an underrated masterpiece a few years later. And in moments like this, I honestly feel bad for the developers. From the very beginning, they never overpromised anything. In every interview, they clearly said this isn't an open-world game. It's a linear, story-driven experience. That's also why the price was set at just $50. They even went out of their way to clarify that it's not going to be a clone game either, since many players from the Mafia 3 audience were assuming it would be the same. But despite giving all these justifications, the developers still have to deal with unnecessary criticism. To be honest, one big reason why the gaming industry feels like it's in decline is because smaller games are disappearing. Back in the day, there used to be plenty of games that weren't perfect. They were just 10 to 15 hours long, but still 100% worth playing. Today, those kinds of games don't get the respect they deserve. Everyone just wants a 40 to 50 hour experience. And on top of that, developers are crushed under the pressure of Metacritic scores and reviews. Look, a 10 out of 10 game or even a 9 out of 10 game is great and definitely worth playing. But if a game falls in the 7 or 8 range, that doesn't make it bad. Those can still be really good games, they're just not masterpieces. And if you expect every single game to be a masterpiece, you'll eventually stop enjoying gaming. While playing, your mind will only focus on what's missing. This feature isn't there, that mechanic isn't included. This mindset is also why AAA games are starting to struggle. Developers try to please everyone by making massive projects that require huge budgets and thousands of people working for years. And with that scale, the risk goes up massively too. The risk of failure, the risk of financial loss. That's why we need more smaller games. Games that might be shorter in length or smaller in scope, like Mafia, The Old Country, or even Claire Obscure Expedition 33. Not every release needs to be a giant blockbuster. I genuinely hope we see more of these smaller, focused games, because only then can the industry truly begin to heal. People have also been saying that Mafia, The Old Country, should have had a happy ending instead of a sad one. I understand where you're coming from, but let me share my perspective. First of all, if you haven't played the game yet, please skip this section using the timestamps and move ahead. Don't say later that I spoiled it for you. This is your spoiler warning. Now, here's the thing, pick up any Mafia game, or forget games, look at Mafia movies, their endings are never happy, because realistically, that's just not possible. And honestly, it shouldn't be. In reality, most people connected to the Mafia world met tragic ends. Either the police caught them, or they were betrayed, or they died in gang wars driven by ego. Even those who tried to escape the Mafia life couldn't stay safe for long. Sooner or later, the Mafia always came back to take revenge. It's an endless cycle with only one possible way out. That's why the last achievement of the game is also called The Only Way. Right when I started playing, I had a feeling that if this game was truly showing the reality of the Mafia, then no one was really a friend. Everyone was working for their own benefit, and betrayal could come from anywhere at any time. Honestly, I wasn't prepared for the ending, and it shocked me. But after processing it for a while, I realized the ending was actually perfect. It had to happen that way. The truth is, in the Mafia world, there's no such thing as right or wrong. Everyone acts out of self-interest, and in that sense, everyone is wrong. So naturally, their fates end up being the same. Every Mafia game has ended on a sad note, and that's important because it serves as a reality check. No matter how much money or power they gain, their downfall is inevitable. And the way these Mafia bosses meet their end also forces us to think. Just a moment before, they were filled with rage, planning to take out their enemy, dreaming about building their future and making more money. But in the very next moment, they were lying powerless on the ground, watching their ambitions, goals, and entire life shatter before their eyes. That's a powerful reminder of just how unpredictable life can be. And this is exactly the beauty of story-driven games. A good story game always leaves us with something to learn, something you might not find in a YouTube video, a lecture, or even a book. Over time, I've realized that even a sad ending can be a good one, because when you truly love someone, the real test is whether you can let them go. Can you allow them to live on their own terms instead of holding on too tightly? Can you accept fate as it comes? For me, that was a powerful lesson, something I learned from a game, not from any book or classroom lecture. That's why I keep saying we need strong, meaningful stories in games. Of course, endless shooting, fighting, and boss battles are fun too, but personally, I've started to enjoy stories more. And yes, I do understand the criticism. People say Mafia's gameplay is repetitive, that it doesn't bring anything new, and that it feels copied from other games. But here's the thing, every developer has a different focus. Some focus on building huge open-world experiences, some on polishing combat systems, and some on delivering powerful narratives. And the truth is, each one has its own audience and its own demand. Mafia games have always lived in the shadow of bigger titles. People often said they were too similar, and even websites like Wikipedia labeled them as clones. But with this new game, I feel like the series has finally carved out its own unique identity. After playing it, you just can't call it a clone or simply a rival anymore. It stands as a separate game on its own, still part of the crime genre, but different enough to feel fresh. Like they say, same, but different. To be honest, the future of the Mafia series depends on this game. If you've watched my Rise and Fall of Mafia series video, then you already know that every single Mafia game's release has been nothing short of a miracle, and it's the same story here. From what's been reported, Hangar 13 actually wanted to make a larger scale game, but because of limited budget and time, they had to settle for something smaller. Now everything rests on the success of this release. Whether the Mafia series moves forward or not depends entirely on how this game performs. And honestly, looking at its current state, I'm a little worried. The initial response has been good, but compared to previous Mafia titles, it feels a bit slow. On Steam, its peak concurrent players were around 35,000, which is noticeably lower than Mafia 3's 47,000. Estimates suggest that in the first 36 hours, about 186,000 copies were sold on Steam, which means first week sales on PC could max out around 700,000. On PlayStation and Xbox, review counts are also relatively low, which indicates weaker sales there as well. It's believed that the game needs to sell around 1.76 million copies to break even. Let's see how things play out, but one thing's for sure, if you plan on playing this game, please don't pirate it. We don't need another franchise dying out. So that's all from my side. These were just the thoughts I had in mind. Even though I'm a small YouTuber, I felt it was important to talk about this topic. Now you tell me, how did you find this game? And if you want to know more about the history of Mafia games, then click on the video on the right. Don't forget to like, share, and comment. I'll see you in the next interesting video.